Welcome to my channel, and let's talk about RoundTripper interface in Go. Recently I was doing rate limiting on my client to work with API that has a rate limit, and I decided to make a video about RoundTripper interface, how to do rate limiting, logging or caching your request. So let's talk about it. What is RoundTripper? RoundTripper is an interface. Let's actually open documentation for RoundTripper. Go talk, RoundTripper, and let's read it. As you can see, RoundTripper is an interface that executes single HTTP transaction and returns a response for provided request. And important detail here that RoundTripper should not modify request. It's very important to know. You should not modify your request in your RoundTripper. So how does it look like? Let's actually see a diagram I draw. When you have a client that sends a request to your server, and before your request hits server, you actually have something that transports your request called RoundTripper interface. And before your request hits the server, you can modify your request in your RoundTripper or your transport. It is actually called default transport. In Go, it is an implementation of a RoundTripper interface. You can do a lot of things with your request going from a client. You can, as I already said, you can cache it, you can log it, you can add some headers to it, or you can rate limit your request going from a client. Let's actually see, to demonstrate this RoundTripper interface, I'm gonna use this http.org website, and we're gonna implement RoundTripper with basic auth, actually with authentication for a client. Let's jump into code and let's start with creating a client. Let's create a client, http client, and client has a field called transport. As you can see, transport is just a RoundTripper interface. Let's actually create a client, and what we're gonna do, we're gonna create a new request. Let's create a request, http new request, and it takes method get and URL. It's gonna be, let's create it here. It's gonna be https http bin org basic auth, and user is gonna be foo and password bar. Nice, looks good, and nil for body. And if error is not nil, I'm gonna check it, and just gonna print error. That's it. And with the client, what we're gonna do, we can say client do a provide a request. And client also returns response and error. And if error is not nil, we're gonna just print it like this, and then we're gonna print response status. So let's make a request. Make one. And as you can see, we're getting for a 1 unauthorized because we have basic auth and we do not provide any credentials to actually make a request. So let's create a RoundTripper, and let's call it auth RoundTripper. It's gonna be struct, and RoundTripper is an interface that implements round-trip method. So let's create round-trip, RoundTripper, round-trip. Round-trip takes a request, pointer to a request, http request, and returns pointer to response, and an error. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna create base RoundTripper. It's gonna be http RoundTripper interface, and we're gonna say return RoundTripper base, and we're gonna call the base. Actually, we're gonna call RoundTrip on the base RoundTripper, and we're gonna provide a request for it. So this is not gonna work because we have to provide it here. When we're creating a client, we have to provide transport, which is a RoundTripper, and instead of a default RoundTripper, we're gonna provide it our RoundTripper, and it takes base RoundTripper. It is a default RoundTripper. So let's create base RoundTripper, http default transport. Default transport is base. It is implementation. It is an implementation of RoundTripper interface in Golang standard library. So as you can see, this is default transport, and it is a RoundTripper interface. It has proxy, dial context, and some other fancy stuff. What we're gonna do next, actually let's test that it works. Make run. As you can see, it works, but it returns 401. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna provide credentials. Let's provide the credentials. Let's say we have a user. It's gonna be a string, and a password. It's gonna be a string. And as you remember, in documentation, they say you cannot modify the request to avoid data races, actually. And what you can do before modify a request, you can clone the request. Let's clone a request, clone, and you have provide context to request. So let's provide context from request. And now we have deep clone the request, and we can modify this clone. What we're gonna do, I'm gonna say request set basic auth, and let's provide credentials, roundtrip user, roundtrip password, and that's it. As you can see, we do not provide any credentials here when we created client, but we implemented our own RoundTripper. It's kind of a middleware from a client side. We implemented this, and we are providing for every outgoing request from a client, we're providing credentials to authenticate on a server. So let's test that it works. Let's make a request, make run. It is unauthorized because we do not provide any credentials. Let's say user is gonna be foo, and password is gonna be bar, foo and bar. Let's make run again, and as you can see, it works fine. And this is very cool and very idiomatic, very powerful way to create composed round trippers. You can have round trippers, you can chain round trippers, and you can lock your request, you can add rate limiting, you can add headers, and you can do a lot of stuff with this. So it is very cool. And I wanted to share it with you so you can learn how to create middlewares from client side. So that's all. That's all I want to talk about in this video. Thank you for watching. And if you like it, you can like it. If you dislike it, you can dislike it. Write a comment. So thanks for watching again. Bye.